Today I'm going to show you fritzing, more specifically how to navigate fritzing. This is not a tutorial about electronics or how to make your own PCB board from scratch. Rather, this is how you translate an already designed PCB board to fritzing so that it can then be exported to use with our Carvey and our Volterra. So when you open fritzing, this is what you're greeted with. I'm going to click on New Sketch, wait for the new sketch to load, and it's going to bring us to the breadboard view. Now, it's really cool because fritzing has a breadboard view, a schematic view, and a PCB view. So you can use one software program to start designing on a breadboard and then to even making your own custom PCB board. However, because we already have a PCB board design in mind, we're going to go straight to the PCB view. Here in the PCB view, we can see that there's this lighter gray area and this darker gray area. The lighter gray area is your PCB board. If you click on your PCB board and you go to one of the corners, you can actually resize it. Some more navigation is you use your mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out. You press down on your middle mouse button to move around and pan, or if you don't have a middle mouse button, you can use this bottom bar or this sidebar. Now, here all the way on the right, we can see our parts. Fritzing has a lot of different parts that you can use, and they label everything into these little libraries. So here we have core parts. So core parts are like resistors, switches, lights, ICs, and power. You can also add your own parts. So here I've actually added a part. They also have Arduinos, SparkFun products, Seed Studio, Intel, analog devices, and many more. Instead of going through all that, you can search for a part, or if you can't find that part, you can go on Google and see if someone else has created that part, in which case you could then import it into your My Parts for use. Now, to get a part onto your PCB, what you do is you click on the part and then click and drag it. So now you can see this Arduino Uno is on the PCB board. Now, it's a little too big for the default PCB board, so we're just going to make our PCB board a little bit bigger. Now, if you click on it, you can see right here it says Part 1. You can actually change this label by double-clicking on it. So I'm going to change it to Uno. And you can even move this label, which is really useful so that it's not in the way of anything or obstructed. Now, when we create PCBs, even more importantly for our Carvey machine, is we want to keep everything one-sided. We don't want to create a double-sided PCB board. So down here you can see that right now both layers are selected. So before we start any wiring, we want to make sure that we are on the bottom layer. Some other things here are we have a view from above or a view from below. We're going to keep the view from above. You can also rotate different things if you have them clicked, so this lets me rotate the Uno, and they even have an auto route function. Now, when we are adding parts, it is useful to be on the top layer because we do want our pinouts to go through both layers or the whole material. So I'm going to stay on the top layer as I add the parts. So I'm going to add a button and an LED light. Now, what's really nice about fritzing is they're pretty good about notes and labeling. So we know this is the anode, this is the cathode, and then it even tells us on the button that pin 3 is always connected with pin 4. And here is pin 4. So it tells us that pin 4 is always connected with pin 3, which is always something that's important to keep in mind because if these two pins are always connected, we can't connect one to power and one to ground because it's just going to continuously think the button's being pressed. So now that we have these components, we're going to switch back to the bottom layer for our wiring. To wire things in fritzing, what you do is you click on the pin and then you drag it, and you can see that there's this wire, and you drag it to the pin that you want to connect it to. So right now I have pin 2 on my button connected to this ground pin on the Arduino Uno. Now if I want to take pin 3, I can connect it to pin 2. And I can do the same thing now for the LED. So I'm going to take the anode and connect it to pin 3, and I'm going to take the cathode and connect it to ground. Now, what's important to note is that we have a bunch of wires crossing, which is a big no-no in PCB design. So in order to make sure that our wires aren't crossing, we can actually move them and manipulate them by creating things called breaks. So if you hover over the wire and click, you can see that there's this red dot now, and it looks like the wire has been split in two. If you drag it, you can actually create these breaks and move the wire out of the way to make sure that no wires are crossing each other. I'm going to do the same thing up here. And now you can see we don't have any wires crossing. This is a really basic PCB, and I hope that this has helped you understand how to navigate Fritzing a little bit more so that you can get your PCB design translated to Fritzing so that you can then use the Carvey and Volterra we have here in the Idea Lab to make your PCB design a reality.